Hello, my name is Sooinn Lee, and thank you very much for having me here at the foundation and SUTD. Actually, I was here, I believe that 20 years ago when there was a kind of university Olympiad programming competition with some of my friends. So today I will discuss about game design, universal design for learning, and how we believe how digital education can be a great game changer for current difficult problem of education around the world. Today's topic is designing KitKat School, game design and with universal design for learning. That's me. I graduated the School of Fine Art, then became an illustrator in game company, then became game designer. At the time in 1999, there is no class about game design, interaction design, computer interface design, nothing. So I just became game designer after I started working in game industry. I worked as a game designer and corporation strategist at NCSoft, one of the largest online game developer in Korea. Then changed my career to education. Then became CEO and co-founder of Enuma from 2012. So when I was a game designer, I saw an industry that pouring tens of millions of dollars to entertain healthy adults. And I thought this industry is really cool. And I really enjoyed every aspect of game industry. And I met my husband. He was a game developer and also gold medalist of Olympiad and one of the best programmer on our age in Korea. And we think that the life will go on in this way. Okay, we will just think about the game and build games like Lineage and sometimes copy World of Warcraft. Oh, okay, that's good. And we went to United States when my husband started his PhD and my son was born. When my son was born and diagnosed as multiple special needs, I and my husband just look each other's eyes and ask why we didn't choose the path of being doctor or therapist or something helpful for my child's future. And one day, my child stayed in the newborn intensive care unit for 60 days. During that time, one doctor just came in and she just asked, what was your job before? They just call everybody mom. Oh, mom, what did you do? What was your job? So I told her, hey, I was a video game developer. And I felt so humiliated because it sounds like a useless job for my child in the whole world. But she said, wow, amazing. We really need that type of talent in this field a lot. So that actually the word changed in my life. So on that night, because my child is staying at the hospital, I and my husband didn't do anything to do at home. So we searched games for children with special needs, application for people with disability. All the education game I found on that day looked so low quality, so outdated. And it was not enough to entertain children, my precious child who may have difficulty in learning. So with all of those path of thought, I just start to look for all those data about what is the meaning of special needs, why children struggle to learn. And my child actually diagnosed as hearing loss first. Okay, that is really small. It's a low incident disability, so only 0.4% of child will have hearing loss. But there are other chances that this child will have, like learning differences, learning difficulties in the future, or low cognitive skill, other and attention problem or behavioral problem in the future. So I just try to understand what is going on children's brain when their brain is different from typical children's brain, and start to do some experiment. It is a school for children with deafness in Berkeley. He was 2.5 years old. And it was so fun for him to learn new sign language word from teacher. he was obviously has other needs. So I know he will not have all the learning gain as his typical peers, but he really liked to learn. So from that moment, I start to think about learning in a totally different way. So because I was high achiever. So I believe that, learning is fun only for the child who can achieve fast, who can win the other kid, against the other kid. But it seems that, learning is fun whether they have Down syndrome or whether they have other disability, autism or whatever. Just learning is basically fun. So when they feel difficulty, when they hit the wall, when they hit the question they can't solve, they can't understand. So in game design's field, if your user doesn't understand the rule of the game, it's game designer's fault. But in education field, I felt that it is more blame the child and mark this child as F rather than marking F to game designer. So that was the first insight I got about education and how to educate young children. So with the sponsorship of my former employer, NCSoft, I started to design 3 special education application on the newly introduced iPad. It was 2011. The first one called Engineer Child Development Game Suite, special education tool targeting young toddlers with special needs. And the second one is assistive communicator for young nonverbal learners. And the third one called Write My Name. When child get 5 in the United States, the first question for children with special needs who enter the school is, can this child write their name? So I want to give a great practice of how to practice their own name with iPad. Interestingly, except for the second one that is clearly assistive tech, the first one and the last one became quite popular among just general toddlers. And I learned another important thing while I am designing those games. Even 1-year-old child with Down syndrome can distinguish which is better interaction. And the quality of interaction they are seeking is same quality that any adult looked for. That's really interesting, right? So we assume that maybe children will need slow interaction. They may need more explanation to play. So many of children's app have quite talkative instruction like, child, okay, this is me, and I hope you enjoy our game, and please start to click this button. And, yeah, you are doing great job, and so on. No. If you feel that long instruction get bored, child will feel the same. We actually build our interaction and tune it until we feel comfortable. And then we found that children's engagement with game actually totally relate with the quality of interaction that seasoned game designers feel. So that was the second finding, second important finding on my journey. So I started Enuma in 2012 with my husband with this mission statement. We develop exceptional learning tools to empower all children, including those with special needs, to be independent learners. And with 3 years of experience with Ingenie, we had clear idea what actually make child motivate, become independent learner and wanted to learn more. First is independence. I don't know how many of you ever interact with a young learner. What they really hate is mother's help while they are focusing on certain task. No, I will do it myself. And do it themselves actually give a really great pride for whatever task is. Their brain just continuously seek the independence to become independent person, independent human being. So let them play it totally independently without adult help was crucial to get their engagement. And the second is motivation. The biggest problem of many education application is it doesn't give any motivation. Many children actually stop learning. It's not because it's too difficult, it's because it's too boring. So how to provide continuous motivation to children is really important. But more important thing is success. I'm a gamer for a long time from when I was really young, but I'm a really poor gamer. So in many of cases, I actually failed the first jump. I failed to meet first 5 buttons in a row to move to the next level in a music game. And that is the most frustrating in the world. Nobody make me successful, especially in early games that is originally designed for smart male between 18 years to 45 years. So, but for children, having an idea of they can be successful is the most important factor. They should do it independently. There are some fun factors make them motivated, and more importantly, they should experience success in that system. Without that, it will never go anywhere. We interviewed some of parents of children with special needs. How a game can help your child? And they say, I remember the conversation. One mom say, please make Mario not die. Because her child really loved to play Mario. But this child Mario just kept dying. So even though this child played and played and played, he never see the end of the game. And nobody can help. Only game designers can help, can put easy mode in there. But some of the game, like Nintendo, are not that kind. So with that experience, we launched Todo Math that become one of the most popular math app and Apple App Store until today with 7 million organic download. And KitKit School, we in the Global Learning XPRIZE, I actually didn't explain a lot about how I design in here. It will come at the end of the session. So I will just go through what is KitKit School and what is XPRIZE and how we can how this game-based application helps children to learn. And then we'll come back to game design and how our game design support especially struggling learner actually can be accessible for all learners to learn. So our team is a 60-people team locating in Berkeley and Seoul, Korea. What we do best is designing highly engaging self-learning tool. So most important thing is autonomous and independent play. So our user actually can play any of our application without adult help for quite a long time. And second, it is common sense in game industry. We will design for user. But it is not always true in education because most of education systems serve to the system. So they design application for parents. They design application for teacher. They design application for administrator. And rarely care about how child will feel when they see that system. And the last one, so if this child have a really great teacher and therapist, they may have a full benefit of those great other human being who knows how to interact with other human being. But when we come to the digital, the only benefit happens when it can scale to millions and tens of millions of people. So we design everything for scale from the beginning. So having the functionality for the scale and really stable server system expecting large amount of user will come in some day. And also, what is really unique about Enuma's work is applying universal design for learning for every application. We don't care is it a special education tool or just general education tool. We just put all the detail we learn from universal design for learning. So we have several special education apps in the market. It's mostly experimental. For example, Kidding Storybook Maker is using some of vision technology to detach children's face from the background and attach it to different background for children with autism understand the scene with more motivation by seeing his own face. And the visual schedule for children with autism was visual schedule app running on Apple Watch, and expected that if a child with autism or adult with autism can get a guidance about what he is doing right now and where to go next through the daily schedule. And we continuously explore new accessibility functionality, whatever it can be included in general education tool. I will discuss more about it later. Universal design for learning principle is how to make any learning design be inclusive for different type of learners. So if you design for accessibility of people with disability, but if you integrate this functionality into your daily design, it can be helpful for people with disability and many of common people. There are some of good example of universal design. This door, it doesn't require the lever to turn, but if you push it, you can open the door. That was originally designed for people who are sitting on the wheelchair. But later, we know if we have 2 coffee in our hand, we can push the door with our butt, right? So that is actually helpful for anybody, right? It is easier to open. And the font size, that is designed for people with visual impairment. But I'm getting my Portis, and I actually increase my font size on my Kindle almost maximum. It will happen for you someday. And also that lamp to the door, it is designed for people with wheelchair. But any mom has stroller will love to do that. So if you want to convince a manager of a hotel, hey, you should have a lamp for people with disability they may not interested in. But if you say, hey, but moms will be really hard to come in this hotel with their stroller, they may listen your voice. And the sound, ringing sound of traffic light. Now, when we are singing our smartphone, we know when the sign changes. So it is all originally designed for people with disability, but because it uses another sensory aspect like sound, or it will just make people feel more comfortable because disability sometimes is not a black or white. Sometimes you have broken leg. Or sometimes you wear your eyeglasses, but it is not fit to your eyes, so you couldn't see it really well. So all those design will be actually helpful for all human beings. So universal design for learning actually adapt this idea to education. So as you see in the United States, they provide special education for 14% of their learners, and their proficiency level of children are not that high. So because of that, people just think about especially if it goes digital or making a textbook and instruction, how it can be helpful for all other struggling learners with one inclusive method. The first one is you should provide multiple means of engagement. You should grab their attention. Even though they have attention problem, they feel bored, or they have other issues like emotional issues, hard to concentrate. And second, you should give them multiple ways to understand this subject. For the children with dyslexia, if you give a sound with your textbook, it will be really helpful. For children with auditory problems, you will never give your instruction audio only, but always give the visual together. If you remember those two, actually you can reach quite wider number of users. And also, just think about that, 9% of the human being actually have a color blindness, some sort of color blindness. So if you just think about the contrast and color, you will actually increase the accessibility of your learning tool dramatically. And the last one is just giving them many ways to express their feeling. Some children can't do writing. So in this case, allow them to write with keyboard. If writing is not very easy, just allow them to express themselves with some of the drawing and so on. We originally designed for children with special needs, and how we can expand it to just general population, we made Global Learning XPRIZE. The current education system doesn't deliver quality education for all learners. In 2014 data from UNESCO, they say 250 million children in the world cannot read or write. And on one report in 2017, they say 681 million children and adolescents in the world cannot meet basic proficiency in literacy and math, means they couldn't solve second grade literacy and math question. So many governments already spend quite large amount of their GDP to education, but the world need 26 million more teachers just to cover all of the primary level students by 2030, and it seems like an amazing issue, and we don't know how to solve it. So some of great people in MIT thought about giving tablet devices to developing countries from 2007. It is called One Laptop Per Child project. And they provide hardware, 37 million hardwares to developing countries, but failed. They never prove any learning gain. And after 5 years, they just realized, oh, it's not a problem of hardware. It's a problem of software. How we can build an engaging software that a child can learn without any adult help. So we can solve the big problem of education accessibility in the world. It was announced in 2014. So they will just install software to remote area in Africa. And they will get a test of children and will come back after 15 months. And if any software prove learning gain for these out-of-school children in rural area in Tanzania, they will get $15 million, US dollar. So around 200 teams started this competition. And in the last 15 months, they picked 5 finalists among them and recruited 2,700 villages in rural area in Tanzania with the help of Tanzanian government, and 2,700 children in 170 villages. I'm sorry about that. And all those villages doesn't have any power. So they installed 1 solar panel per villages, and making it available to charge 20 to 40 tablets allocated to that village, and gave tablets to children, out-of-school children between 7 to 10 years old. And I will just show you this video. It's a 2-minute that explaining what is XPRIZE and what is the environment.
256 million children who are out of school in very underprivileged communities.
That's an estimated 250 million children around the world who don't have access to basic literacy and numeracy.
I've been to the field. Those villages are very, very remote. Schools are very, very far. So some of the children, they've never got an opportunity to go to school.
I call them the unreached.
We launched the Global Learning XPRIZE to inspire innovators all over the world to create open source learning software so that children have access to learning wherever they are.
If really we can establish that the software is successful in teaching children without access to school, the experiment could lead to a breakthrough in covering many, many, many children everywhere.
The Global Learning XPRIZE has a $15 million prize purse sponsored by Elon Musk. The grand prize winner will be determined by which software application has the largest learning gains in reading, writing, and math within a 15-month period. We could not have done this without the support of our benefactors, our sponsors, who put their money and attention into making sure this would happen.
They didn't want any recognition. They didn't want to be publicized greatly. They felt like this is something they wanted to do for the altruistic value. So we can't thank them enough.
The question we set out to answer, can children learn on their own using adaptive software, can they be taught reading, writing, and basic math? The answer is yes.
This prize has opened the eyes of many children who otherwise would have not known what it is like to get even simple education.
They are feeling excited, they are feeling awesome, they feel like they are winners because they participate in the project.
These kids, from where they were no hope of becoming someone. But now I think we can have nurses, we can have lawyers.
Tangu tablet alikuwa mimi sijui kusoma. Alipokuja mimi nimeshakuja kujua kusoma.
Ndasikia vizuri kwa wamefanya beti ilikuwa sijui kusoma mpaka nilipoza.
Now the kids are able to read, now kids are able to write. Even some now they've been motivated themselves now to go back to school. Children will not be the same again.
No matter who wins this competition, we have shown that children can learn using this technology, that children who otherwise wouldn't have access to learning, that they have the opportunity to unleash their potential. We have the technology, we have the tools to do it. Now we just need to do it.
Najisikia vizuri, maana mpaka sasa hivi najua kusoma. Nashukuru sana kwa msaada wenu uliotugaia sisi watoto wa Tanzania.
Among those 2,700 children, 94% of them can't read one word. So after 15 months, 30% of child can read full sentence, and 65% of child can do basic addition and subtraction. It is 2 to 7 times higher than the control group of similar environment. And also, we added some of the free drawing tool and music instrument, and we saw children not just learning, not just accept the teaching, but they just tried to build something they learned. They made a name card, they draw a picture of their mom. That is not from XPRIZE field test, but that is happening because we collected all those data from the field. Because of the competition rule, we couldn't access to the area that is going, that XPRIZE competition is going on, but we could see the log data from the field. And that is what children draw inside of our system. And think about that. We know some children are living more advanced area than others because we can see safari bus and cars during, in the picture of one village. But in some villages, there are none of those signs, and overall children's drawing was relatively lower quality. So it depends on where they are, what type of education they get before. But we can see children just try to learn by themselves and express themselves in many different ways once they have medium in their hand. We also run our own field test in various areas in Tanzania. So it is one of the center for out-of-school children in rural area in Tanzania. So those children are from rural farming area and never access to school. And we just gave them lunch and let them access to tablet device on their own. Through that 3 months, they show up every day and spend 272 hours totally voluntarily and just play. And after 3 months, their learning gain was so high compared to the school children who played Kit School because their baseline was quite low. But however, they almost catch up to the second grader who attended school for the last 2 years. And that is really interesting environment. That is a refugee camp in Kenya. The teacher-children ratio are almost 1 to 500. So teacher divided classroom into 3, and each classroom run only 1 hour and 20 minutes per day. And other complexity of this environment, they are refugees from Somalia, Congo, and other area. But because of the rule of government, they should teach everything in English. But the problem is teacher in there were not English speaker himself. He was refugee as well. So it's really, really hard to listen any correct pronunciation in there, any meaningful learning happening. So, and that is an environment that how child learn. There is no desk or no textbook. However, children just demonstrate amazing engagement and amazing learning gain. But you should understand that the baseline was really low, and the environment itself doesn't deliver any learning anyway. When we just test in many different areas in the world, we meet many challenges to scale. First, security. Tablet device is still expensive, even though it is under $100 in many African countries with minority Chinese vendor. It's still really precious. So some schools just doesn't want to run the tablet because they don't want to become target of bandit. And electricity, even though there is a power, the power outlet is not enough to charge 20 devices at the same time. Device with minimum requirement, even though this device has minimum requirement of tablet, one tablet you work with has a speaker in the back. So if your child put it on the desk, no sound. I couldn't imagine why the designer of this minor Chinese vendor designed so, but however, it is the reality. That is really crucial because we need adult help for charging and managing. And if the tablet doesn't turn on, at least one adult distinguish, is it because of power problem or is it broken? And sometimes people just doesn't distinguish the difference between those two. Localization is language localization, certification from official curriculum department, that is a big burden. And more problem is challenges in the classroom. So in one classroom, the noise level is so high because of the lack of the wall and proper window. We decide to provide headset to each child. But in that area, the ear infection is so common. So it is not very ideal to have shareable headset to the classroom. So at the end of the day, we decided to give individual headsets per each child. So we need to deal with 700 headsets and assign one to each other. And some child just chew it so hard because something is dangling around their face and they never experienced that, so they just chew it. So those type of environmental problem is also really big challenge for us. So right now, our team is after, did I say we became a co-winner of Global Learning XPRIZE and get Elon Musk $5 million as a prize. So that happened 2019 May. So at that time, as a first time, we knew what is going on and get the evidence that our application is working in that out-of-school environment and start to scale it to different environment in the world. And still, we are looking for what is the right path to scale it that has less environmental challenges and has more funding. But however, we started 8 years ago. And we originally focused on children with special needs and then expanded our dream for struggling learners. And then right now, we just try to get into unsuccessful education system around the world. It was not a pivot because our dream of making all children to become independent learners are still staying there. And I drew it 2009 April. With the hope that one day my child can learn basic ABC with tablet software I and my husband will make. And right now, my second child, 3 years old, is learning ABC with the software we designed for his brother and all of the children in the world. So that is an initial question for any game designer. So when you make education game, before you worry about the curriculum and difficulty level and other things, you will see the student just quit. They will just press the home button because it's not fun for them. When we test with young children, we can just count the second. And the time duration from starting of the app until they press the home button exactly aligned with how good this software is. Why they quit to play? It's because many people believe that, especially education software, people believe they will quit when it feels boring, right? So that is an idea from really smart people. They feel bored when the subject is too easy. But in reality, it's not. They usually quit because they couldn't understand the subject. So the delicate balance of engagement, that is really important in many of game design. But when we think about the game, when we think about the education, we should really understand actually the demographic of child we are working with are different from our persona in our mind. So it's really hard to find the right path between boredom to anxiety or just failure, but it's not very important for me because we don't believe that we will not lose any child because of is easiness. The boredom comes from easiness. It rarely happens. And universal design for learning, I already explained that we try to put this in every aspect of our game. And that is another thing come from special education. So many people actually don't understand this complicated path when child hear the question to tell the answer. But in there, so many functionality required to achieve that task. This student able to hear. This child understand what he hear. This child can keep his attention from the beginning of sentence until the end of sentence. And their working memory still work, so they memorize what they hear. And then now they understand what was the question. And they should know the answer. And then their executive function actually work for them to write the answer or move their vocal cord or move their lip. And then their body control actually can do this work. And then you will get the answer. And if there is a noisy environment, if there are somebody who is poking this child back, it will never happen. So when we think about education, we should think all those details, what blocks this child from answering it. By carrying all those different aspects, we can actually make quite large variety of child can answer the question. So that is one example. So that is a answering method, so input method of Todo math. So originally, child will input with their finger, just write number 7. But for a child who couldn't write the letter, they can drop the block to the position. There are some children called Dysgraphia. They don't know, they couldn't memorize how the symbol shaped. So when they see 7, they know it is 7. But if somebody say, hey, draw 7 without the example of 7, they couldn't answer. So having those numbers on the top, actually it helps those type of children can draw this letter perfectly. And also, there is another functionality for keypad for children who have hard to trace with their finger. And this functionality actually is a big secret of our success of Todo math because not many 3 years old can write 8 perfectly. But because we have that functionality, even 2 years old can answer like how many apples there are. Oh, that is 3. So it made our application quite popular and accessible for young learners. And we still think about many accessibility functionality that can be embedded in general tool. So that is one of example of that. So this is a still mock-up. So in KitKit School, there is a video that model what is the reading. because not many child in our area have experienced that adults read for them. Many of their mothers are illiterate. So we have a video of reading and discussing with the child about the book. And if they switch it to sign language mode, the sign language translator will pop up in that system and will translate what is going on with sign language.
Panya. Sina hakika kama nawapenda panya. Hebu tusome. Panya. Panya. Panya ni mnene. Panya anapenda kulala. Panya ana huzuni.
So it's really minor functionality. Maybe most of child will not need forever. But think about the scale of this program. If you cover the whole country, there are 1% of child who will get benefit with hearing with sign language. Many of government never had a bandwidth to hire sign language teacher with some of wealthy school district in United States. But just having that functionality, you can access to additional 1% that is hardest to reach. It may cost about $200,000 more to design this application, but think about increasing 1% of accessibility to your primary education system in large scale. That is the benefit of digital, and that's what digital education designers should envision for the future. That is my hope, that I can deliver all those functionality for all of our app that will be delivered to a government and any large-scale environment. So it is a matter of the imagination. That is a picture of classroom in the future that is drawn around 1970s by a Japanese illustrator. So they think about the future. There is no teacher, there is computer, and child will answer to the computer. And if they make it wrong, there will be robot to hit this child. And in the top, there is a detention robot. So this robot is holding a child who is standing up. So that is a quite old idea about education. If they couldn't understand the answer, parents just hit, teachers just hit. And they expect this child will work harder. But now it's 2020. We know that hitting a child will never make this child understand the subject. They may have really big missing link in their early childhood or early stage of their education. So we will just use our technology to individualize it, provide a personal support to them, and our imagination, the right path of imagination, will change the shape of education forever. And I believe that that will be the shape of future school. That is out of school children in Tanzania testing KitKat school. So the teacher can say, "Gua," okay, "gua." Teacher can say, "Noa," "noa." But with this fun and engagement, child will never lose what they learn in the classroom, and will turn all those activity into fun and really important food for their life. So that's what we try to do. Thank you very much. I spent 1 hour, 1 full hour, and I'm open for any question or comment.
I'm quite amazed at all the success that your app has brought, and it's like really quite mind-blowing thing that a kid can actually learn so much from just like a application. So going into the future, I guess more of these applications will come out, and then in the environment will be quite saturated with all these kind of learning applications. So then what do you think the role of the teacher is in the future?
We are working in the environment where we can't expect teachers' help for learning. So there are environments that scarce of teacher. So for example, in one school we tested, there are 8 teachers in 600 children's school. So teachers are present only half of the day, and other half, child will just trace what teachers wrote on the blackboard, or just waiting for a teacher. So in that case, we can actually help kind of blended model for those children can learn something effectively. In the case of refugee camp school, there is no teacher. So in one example, we recently started our field testing in Rohingya refugee camp in Bangladesh. There are 100,000 children who couldn't access to education, and because of the government policy, they can't learn either Myanmar language or Bangladesh language. They only allowed for them is English, but nobody in the refugee camp can teach English. So they decide to use KitKat school, but there is no school. So they put 8 tablet devices in one backpack and deliver it to houses. And in that house, the mom, the owner of this house, collect 8 children and let them play with KitKat school for 1 hour. After 1 hour, second group of children will come to this house, and after that, third group of children will come. So in that environment, we can see really clear benefit of KitKat school. But for the school system that is already working, that is a bit complicated issue. So first, I believe that it will be really helpful for different learners, like children with special needs, children from immigrant families, children who actually need to train more foundation skill rather than following what teacher is teaching in the classroom. That is one. And second, not many teachers trained the latest skill they need to teach, like foreign language. So I believe Singapore is using English as a national language, but in Korea, even though I spent 3 hours per week from my middle school until university, I couldn't say but hello and thank you when I come to United States. And my teachers were not properly trained, so they couldn't give us proper intonation and pronunciation model at all. So in this case, if your population need to equip new language or new subject like coding, we can't train all those teachers become professional coding teacher. So in this case, technology will be a really crucial role for that. That is how I see technology-based education in school system. But we don't know, because it depends on will there be great solution actually can solve that issue. We want to, many governments want to introduce coding education as early as possible, but we couldn't see any effective coding application that is totally usable in school yet. So if it happens, it will change the shape of education. But if it doesn't come out, nothing will be changed. So that's how I see its role in education.
I just want to add to the answer of Sooinn just given. If you look at the United Nations figures, related to SDG 4, which is a Sustainable Development Goal for the world, we are going to need in order to achieve universal primary education, meaning every kids in the world would have at least primary school education by 2030, we are going to need 26 million more teachers compared to today. Right? 26 million more teachers, that is almost 5 times or 4.5 times the population of Singapore. So that means you have to teach 26 million adults before you can teach the hundreds of millions of children who need teachers today. Right? So it's a lot of resources, and it's very costly, and we have no confidence that it can actually be achieved in 10 years' time. Right? So this is more from the quantitative perspective, but you look at it qualitatively, like what Sooinn mentioned just now. There's so many more new skills that kids need to learn, right? During my time when I went to primary school, we don't have a lot to learn. But now, our Prime Minister Lee say, kids have to learn coding, right? You have to learn STEM skills. You have to learn the so-called 21st century skills. So all the teachers must learn all these before they can teach the kids, right? So we are hoping that this kind of tools, this kind of solution can help the teachers, and we don't think it can replace teacher in the near future, right? So we have to look at also that quantitatively, is it even possible to replace teacher? So the answer is no. Right? It's just to reduce the burden on the issue of teacher shortage.
Thank you for your talk. I think the learning gains are very encouraging. I'm curious if mastery of the app translates to, say, improvements in real world, like authentic reading, writing, communication, tasks, and skills?
We hope so. In many villages, parents reported that their children are smarter to do their errand. So they went to the market and finished the task more accurately, and they can count number and money a lot better than before. And those children really enjoy writing their own name and writing. We actually once saw a new love letter inside. So I believe that children are strong and they are really flexible. So they really love to apply their learning to real life. So I don't worry about real life application of these digital-based skills. And I believe that also this gives different soft skills to children, like self-selection of their learning subject, decide to learn or not to learn, or do some of creative experiment with the pen and paper. So we believe that not only they can apply their reading and math skills in real life, there can be more gain they can by exposing to digital literacy and all those different resources.
Hi, thank you for the talk. Do you think the gamification learning platform will work equally well for older age students, like students in the high school or even students in the university? If you think so, what do you think are the key design elements to make it work? Or if you don't think so, why is that so?
That's a really interesting question. I actually see people into two categories. One is children need to learn how. Children need how to learn, and another is person who need to learn how to learn, and the person who already have ability to learn himself. And I believe that the division it's happening around third grade. So if you see the product in the market after third grade, not all child, but many child actually can learn with video-based learning tool, right? Khan Academy, or there are many systems that just show them video and let them solve the question, and some child actually can do that. It's because those child know the basic skills of learning and motivation to do so. So focusing on what they listen and think about it and express with some form. For our children, not many of them actually has motivation to learn because their parents are all illiterate and they don't know what is good to send their children to school. So sometimes it's really hard to teach their parents why you should send your child to school. So many of schools in developing countries actually feed them in the lunchtime. And that is the only motivation for children to come to school. But so for child who don't know why they need to sit and endure these 2 hours, if the subject is interesting enough and fun enough, motivating enough, we can actually make happen a lot more effectively. If there is no outside motivation like you should study hard from their parents, if there is no pressure, I believe that gamification, some fun inside of digital system can be a total game changer. So one example, many of literacy program in developing countries has an issue of attendance rate. Children's absenteeism is really high, so they should prepare other motivator like food and some of toys for encouraging those children to come. But in our case, we never experienced those problems. But our problem is some children sneaked in without proper enrollment because they heard about it and they want to play. So especially in large classroom that teacher don't know each children's face, they had a hard time to manage those children with limited number of tablet devices assigned for that time. And this type of motivation that attracts children to game room actually can be totally used to attract child into learning until they have some idea what is learning and some of motivation of I want to become somebody. I want to have certain job. I want to get into school after I finish this task. So, but for adult or advanced learner, we need to answer their other motivation. If this learner wants to become number one in his classroom, he needs to be sure that is this a best efficient method for his time, right? If it is adult vocational education, we should give assurance that this time will be meaningfully used for you and you will master this skill by getting this training. And those motivator is a lot stronger than the game interaction. So I believe that the gamification skill I currently have, our team currently have, is only enough to young, non-motivated learners to learn and stay until second grade or third grade skill. There can be other great people, great designer, who actually can see how a bit demotivated adult learners to join to their program. But I believe that it requires really strong real-life motivation as well.
Until recently, I was working for a large U.S. charity called United Way. For those of you who have been in the U.S., you will know that United Way have a very long-standing partnership with the National Football League. It's American football, right? For the last 3 years, United Way has been developing a software program targeted at junior high school students called Character Playbook. Now, this was confidentially, this was in response to, if you remember, there were some incidents of violence from the football players against their wives and girlfriends, right? So NFL was suffering a big sort of like image problem, right? But they could not go out and say, okay, we are going to teach kids anger management, don't beat up your sisters or your daughters or your wives, right? So we worked with them to put together something called Character Playbook, which is to address softer issues, social issues in high school, like common social issues, like bullying, right? Like peer pressure, like diversity and inclusion, right? If you see somebody that doesn't look like you, maybe someone with a different, someone that came from a different country, speaks with a different accent, different skin color, different sexual orientation, right? How do you respond to that? First, what do you do when you see someone being bullied or being taken advantage of, right? For those sort of soft skills, we created this thing called Character Playbook. If you're interested, go to characterplaybook.com, and then you will see what the program is. Now, the motivation part that Sooinn talked about is that the NFL players in the off-season, in the US, right, these guys are treated like gods, right? They are superstars, right? They would go into the local high schools and basically talk through some of the experiences. And then together, so this is online, offline working together. And then the students will then, go on the computer. This is not tablet-based, it's on a regular computer, log in, and then they will be asked, there'll be like cartoon panels, right, sort of thing, right? Okay, you are so and so, right? You see this situation. How would you respond? There's no right or wrong answer. ABC, how would you respond, right? And then at the end of it, they will have a discussion. Maybe if you responded this way, and this is not the only way to respond, and then they will guide you through the different ways of responding. And then the teacher afterwards will have a discussion around some of these things. So after a pilot of about a year and a half, this particular program is now available for free to all high schools in the US. So it is possible to use gamification to tackle particular issues. But it is not something that's easily done, right? There's a lot of money invested by both the NFL and United Way to sort of like put all this whole design together. But I thought I'll just share that piece of information with you.
So my dream is two things. One is we will deliver more effective way to help those struggling learners. And if the fortune allows, we can actually scale it to all learners in the world. So just share this benefit to all other children who are struggling right now in the world. But it's not a dream from outside. It's from one child.